Are you working in a startup finance team? Well, I hate to say what got you here won't get you there. So, if you're a finance manager, a new finance director, or aspiring CFO, the chances are that you're starting to realize that being technically strong probably isn't enough anymore. You really do need leadership skills, influence, and the confidence to show up as a strategic partner, not just someone who gets the reporting done. So that's why I am recommending What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith, especially if you're heading on holiday and looking for something to read. This will actually help your finance career. So in this video, I want to take you through the 5 lessons that really stood out from me from this book, but specifically for startup finance professionals, especially if you're trying to move into that strategic finance leadership role. So my name's Alysha Randall. I'm a fractional CFO, and I also train new and aspiring CFOs that work specifically within startups and scale-ups. And I also wrote a book on this topic, Financial Leadership Fundamentals, how to become a startup how to become a CFO within a startup or scale-ups. So let's start with the first lesson I think is really important, and that is that your strengths can become your biggest weakness. So in finance, we really pride ourselves on accuracy, on risk management, on being technically accurate, all the skills that you were really important much earlier on in your career, particularly if you come from audit. But once you step up into a leadership role, those same traits can unfortunately really get in your way. So you might come across as a little bit critical, as resistant to change, too focused on the detail, and that's really important, or actually it's really a real problem when you're expected to work across functionally, lead a team, influence other departments. So the lesson here is quite simple. You just need to evolve from that. It's not about doing more of what you're good at. It's about learning the skills that make other people want to work with you, to trust you, and get into the big conversations. I know from personal experience, I definitely made this mistake. The first kind of leadership role that I had when I was the #1 finance person and I had no one above me, I thought working harder was the definition of a leader. And actually, fact, I mean, I write about this quite a lot in this book, and that was a completely wrong. And I not only did I burn myself out, but I probably put my team through a bit too much and probably burnt them out as well. So it's a really big lesson that you're not trying to do more of the skills that you're already comfortable with and know, but in actual fact, you need to learn new skills. So the second lesson is stop needing to be right. And this one might be a bit brutal for a lot of us. Goldsmith, he says that winning too much, that's what he calls it, winning too much. And it's that constant need to add that final point, correct someone's mistake, or prove to someone that what you're saying is the most logical. And in finance, because you're often the voice of logic, of reason, this habit can creep up on you without really noticing. But always needing to be right can really kill collaboration and conversation. So you might win the argument, but at the same time, you might lose that relationship, which is really relationship building, and having strong relationships is probably one of the key parts of being a finance leader. So the change is you need to be influential is much more important than being correct. So sometimes you do need to let things go, or just phrase it in a way that invites discussion instead of shutting it down. So the way that I think about it is, if something needs to be corrected and you notice it in your head, if the correction is material, or it's going to change the way the conversation goes, or it changes the way a decision may be made, then it's worthwhile interjecting and making that correction. But if it's slightly off, it's not overly material, it's not really going to change the discussion or the decision, the outcome essentially, then maybe just let that one go through to the keeper. The third lesson I thought was really important is feedback isn't optional. So if you want to lead, you desperately need feedback, and not just from a manager, but from the entire team, from everyone that reports to you, your CEO, the departments you're working with. And I know from personal experience again that it's, when you're used to being objective and quite black and white and metrics and what have you, unfortunately leadership is much more about those softer skills. It's about perception, it's about communication, it's about relationships, and you can't really improve on those things unless you know how you're currently behaving or showing up or being perceived. So you may need to ask the question and seek feedback. So how am I showing up as a leader? What could I do more of or less to support the team or the business better? And you'll learn a lot if you do something with that feedback, and then you'll really earn serious respect. I know from my experience, again, going from a manager to a leader, that kind of kickstart and that pivotal moment that made me change and understand the difference between a manager and a leader, or find out what it means to be a manager or instead of a leader, actually comes off the back of receiving negative feedback. And it was critical for me because it was the first time I got a lot of negative feedback, and I was flawed because I always had been a hard worker, and I thought I was doing a good job because I was working so hard. As I mentioned earlier, I was close to burnout. And actually that's what I learned. The hard lesson is that working hard doesn't mean that you're a good leader, but also it was the feedback that I received that made me go and seek out, what does a leader actually do? How do they behave? What should they be looking at? What are they the owner of? What is their responsibilities? And it took quite a bit of time and chatting to mentors, and I even did a leadership course at Oxford Business School. And then putting all of that together, and I honestly think if I didn't get that negative feedback, I wouldn't be where I am today. So feedback is so important, and today I still ask for it. So even though I'm a fractional CFO, with all of my clients, I ask for feedback so that I know that we're doing a good job or not, and we need to make improvements. The fourth lesson is to apologize, don't just explain. So this one I use all the time when something goes wrong. So whether a forecast is off or a process fails or a board sees something unexpected, it's really tempting to defend your position or explain what happens in detail, particularly if it wasn't like your fault. But leadership is about accountability. So honestly, it doesn't matter who made the mistake. It's you have to take ownership of that mistake, regardless of how it happened. So a quick, honest apology followed by very clear fix does way more to build trust and show up as a leader rather than making excuses. So I would say absolutely own the mistake, outline the fix, and move forward. And that's what your founder really wants to see, and that was what a leader would do. Once you've done that initial part, I would also say that you would need to then work out how you can ensure that that mistake doesn't happen again. So either the process needs to change, some upskilling needs to happen, a new process needs to be implemented. Whatever it is, it's on you to make sure that doesn't happen again. If the mistake happens again, there will be questions about your leadership skills. And the fifth lesson, which is the same as what this book is called, is what got you here won't get you there. Really, this is the core of the book, and honestly, a mindset shift that every finance leader needs. You've probably spent years getting good at finance, but if you're trying to become a strategic finance leader, then the skills you need now are totally different. So it's about building trust with the founder and the board, influencing without authority, really simplifying complexity for non-finance teams, leading a team and developing talent, and then communicating upwards really with confidence. So it's not about being the best analyst or producing the neatest board pack. It's really about stepping up into that leadership. So as I kind of mentioned before, I had to learn the hard way that the skills that you relied on or had as a manager are completely different to what you need as a leader. So doing more of what you've always done is not going to get you into that leadership role. So should you read this book? Well, if you're feeling stuck in your finance career, you're trying to step up from a finance manager or an FD, or you're about to take on your first CFO role in a startup, then this book will absolutely help. It's not about finance at all, so if you're looking for some finance tips, then check out my book instead. But it's largely about behavior, and mindset. So those behavioral changes are often what makes the difference between being seen as a back office function or being seen as a strategic leader. So it's really good because they've got short chapters, which I quite like, and real examples. So it's very readable on holiday. If you like nonfiction during your downtime, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Or if you want to during your commute. So if you can get Audible version or audio version, that is quite a good one for your commute as well. So if you want to become a confident and skilled finance leader in the next 12 months, there's like 3 steps that I always recommend. The first one is to subscribe to this channel for weekly videos about becoming a better startup finance leader. The second one is to read my book, so read this one, but then also this one, The Financial Leadership Fundamentals. I would recommend both of these books if you want to move into a finance leadership role. I'll leave links below for both of them. And then the third one is to join our FLF course. So I really help you build confidence, influence, and leadership style within practical support that fits around your day job. So if you've already read What Got You Here Won't Get You There, then leave a comment below and let me know what really resonated with you the most. And other than that, I'll see you next week. Cheers.